So you're a buyer out in the marketplace today, which is a little crazy as we're all aware, and you're trying to navigate your offer with the seller so that your seller sees your offer in the best light over other competing offers, multiple offer situation. So unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side of the fence you're on, if you're the buyer or if you're the seller, there's certainly some steps and processes to go through to make your offer shine through. Welcome to Breakfast with Bev this morning. I'm Bev Curtis.
Good morning, I'm Kenny Hubble.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to be able to kind of kick it off as far as being that. So there's various aspects that we have to worry about regarding helping you put your best foot forward. And so step one on any part of the buying process is getting pre-approved. So the best thing to do, even if you don't use a local lender, is to be able to get pre-approved with a local lender, so that way we're able to be able to provide that pre-approval letter along with your offer. So step one with any buyer's process, regardless if we're talking about multiple offers or looking for property, as you're buying a property, we need to be able to get a pre-approval letter. Even if this is your third or fourth house and you've done this before and you know you're going to be able to get a loan, we want to get that pre-approval taken care of.
I would totally agree. Another ingredient to the mix is going to be timing. If there's any way from the listing agent that you can get some insight as far as what the timing of the seller is to try to figure out what their needs and goals are that they're trying to accomplish, that can certainly give you an advantage over someone else that maybe needs a different timing because they're coming out of a lease or they have a home to sell. So if you can size up the timing correctly for the seller, it's certainly going to put your offer in a better light.
Yeah, and we find that out by us communicating. That's one of the things that we do here at Bev & Co. is be able just to have great communication with the other agents. That's key. So we'll give the agent a call to be able to find that answer out for the buyer, to be able to say, just want to let you know, I have a buyer that's interested in your property and want to be able to find out your seller situation. Are they staying local? Or, what's their time frame and that sort of thing. So that's how we ascertain that information to be able to assist our buyers in that process. So.
Absolutely. And cleanliness with an offer, I can't express enough. So a seller is not going to want to see a lot of contingencies in the offer. So especially if you have a home to sell, the market is very fast paced right now. So most sellers, depending on their time frame, may not be patient enough to wait for you to sell your home, especially when other offers are coming in that doesn't have to have a sale first in order to make it happen. The other thing that we're also seeing as escalation clauses. And that is something I'm going to kind of let Kenny take the lead on, because depending on how high you're willing to go, that is going to make a difference on your offer as well.
Yeah, so as we talk about price, that's kind of the next step as far as, okay, what should I offer? We're going to walk you through as far as letting you know what the market value is according to what things have sold in the past and where the sellers come up with their pricing on, if they're on pace or not. And quite frankly, it just depends on where we're at. So as we have a communication with that other agent, we find out if there's other offers involved, if they've received other offers, how many showings they've had on the property. Those are the type of things that'll help us. And so one of the things that we can do, there's various points, and we're going to go through each of them, but let's start off with price. And so if we can be able to say, if the property is priced at $200,000 as an example, if we can be able to indicate, okay, we're going to be able to, we're willing to to pay $205,000 as an example. Go ahead and do like $5,000 above asking price. Now, would you have to do that? No, but this is kind of one of the scenarios to be able to do that. So let's start out and say we're going to do $205,000 with an escalation that we'll pay $1,000 or $200 or whatever the process is, and we'll kind of talk to you about that on the different scenarios. But we'll pay $1,000 above any other offer that the seller receives, and then give them a deadline, with the amount not to exceed $215,000 or whatever your absolute max that you'd be willing to pay for that house would be. So as an example, we've got $200,000 house, and if we're going to put an escalation clause of $1,000, not to exceed $215,000, so we're going to make an offer of $205,000, $1,000 escalation, not to exceed $215,000. This is how that would work. We would present the offer. The seller, as they receive that offer, they say, okay, we received another offer, and that was for $207,000. With that escalation clause of $1,000 escalation, your offer automatically became $208,000, which was $1,000 above that $207,000. So that's kind of the one step that we could be able to make to say, okay, it lets the seller know up front, so they didn't have to come back and say, give us your highest and best. We're kind of letting them know our highest and best right at the beginning, with the understanding of that we're not gonna overpay necessarily if we don't have to. We already gave $5,000 above asking price, and then we're willing to go another $1,000 above any other offer they receive, up to a maximum amount, in this example, $215,000. So with that, we're paying $15,000 above the asking price. Would you have to do that? Not necessarily, but if we have that conversation with the seller, with the listing agent, the agent that represents the seller, would be able to have that information to know, okay, yeah, there's been 20 showings on this property and it's been on the market for 2 days. We know that we're gonna be in a multiple offer situation, and so that escalation clause is one of the key steps that we could use to help you with that.
And as a buyer's agent, it's basically our job to kind of direct you on what is the highest amount that we feel like is okay to pay for a property. Because at the end of the day, it really does depend on how long you plan on living in the property. Because if you're only gonna be there for short term, a year or 2 or maybe 3, if you overpay too much in the market, you may be underwater when it's time for you to resell in the future. It really just depends on how interest rates goes, economy goes, how the real estate market is going to play out. If we keep having this type of appreciation, then it's probably not going to be that concerning. Usually, however, real estate goes in cycles, and it usually repeats itself about every 3 to 5 years. So as the market corrects out, you do want to be very careful that you didn't overpay kind of in the heat of the moment and then catch yourself in a problem later. A lot of buyers say, well, how do I know if I'm going to overpay? Kind of the checks and balances on that is the appraisal process. So appraisers are going to take into consideration somewhat what the supply and demand situation is. They're also going to go back to the last 6 months worth of sales and look at the comparables either within that neighborhood, or if they have to go outside that neighborhood within a mile or 2 range out. They're going to try to compare apples to apples as far as lifetime style, age, square footage, amenities. A lot of it has to do with school districts, the lot, and also if there's any type of specialty item about the home. If it maybe sits on a lake lot, or maybe it has a fabulous screened-in porch with fireplace type thing. Any type of special features can actually be added to the appraisal value and kind of give it a little bit of a boost. If the appraisal does not come out after you went through that escalation clause, like what Kenny said, that is going to play a factor as far as the lender coming back to possibly request a second appraisal, or depending on how the results of that goes, the price may have to get adjusted, or the buyer may have to decide if they're willing to pay basically out of their pocket the difference in order to get the home. So it is something to kind of think about long and hard. We're in a multiple offer situation, because if you're not planning on being there for a long time, it certainly could impact your sale down the road.
But I do want to be able to do this because this is one of the ways, every contract has a clause in it regarding the appraisal, and it's up to the buyer to determine if they want to make their offer contingent upon the appraisal or not. So let's take the opposite scenario as far as having an appraisal contingency, and let's say your offer is not going to be contingent upon appraisal. Now what that means is we have the escalation clause as an example that we had before, so on that same scenario. But now we have, okay, I don't want to go as high, but I'm willing to not have my offer contingent upon appraisal. That clause, compared to another buyer's clause, is one red flag. I always talk about the red flags, okay? What's the best case scenario on sellers, and we're going to be able to talk about that at some point. But on the buyer side, to be able to put your best foot forward, if your offer doesn't have an appraisal clause, and you're competing with 5 other offers that do have an appraisal clause, that helps your offer set above the others, regardless of what the price is. Just that appraisal clause taken out of there is a big benefit to a buyer in a multiple offer situation.
Definitely. And kind of going back to the cleanliness of the offer, you need to be very careful about what you ask for. Sometimes buyers are like, oh, I would love for that to stay, or I'd love for this to stay, or sometimes you're better off to leave those items out of the offer initially. And then if we have to go to a bill of sale or to a separate transaction on those items after the contract is accepted, it certainly works in your best benefit. Because I do have to say, in the market that we're in, the seller is the one that is kind of taking the lead at this very moment, because they're the ones that can basically state what they're gonna do, what they're not going to be willing to do. And then it's, we come into that inspection time period as well, because a lot of sellers do not wanna see a very long inspection period time, because that's that much time off the market for them. So if you can have a shorter inspection time, that certainly is a benefit to you as far as stacking up with the other offers.
Yeah, so let's talk about inspections. There's, every time that you buy a house, you wanna make sure that you're doing inspections. The question becomes, when we're in a multiple offer situation, how much do you want to depend on that seller to actually fix items associated with what the inspector finds? So in order to be able to make an offer cleaner, just like if you remove the appraisal clause, you could remove the inspection clause. We never suggest that for our buyers, to be able to make that be totally that process, but that's certainly something you can consider. However, I've done this a lot, to be able to say this offer regarding the inspections are only contingent upon the major components of the property: the roof, the sewer or septic, the electrical, the HVAC, which is the heating and air conditioning. Those sorts of things. If those components have a problem, then the buyer's going to be asking for them. Otherwise, the buyer's accepting the property with all the other things that an inspector might be able to find. But those are kind of the big ticket cost items. And so if you make your offer just contingent upon being able to say, if there's a problem with one of those, I'd like to be able to have it addressed. Otherwise, I'm accepting the property in its current condition. And that can be kind of that next step. So kind of three things. The full inspection notice, where you're saying, if anything comes up on the inspections, I want to be able to get out of the contract, which is normal. Or the opposite end of that spectrum, I'm not making my offer contingent on any inspections at all, and that's a big benefit to your offer versus another buyer's offer. And then if you kind of in between, just those big major components. So how does that work, and what's the best way for you? We're going to be able to help you that on a transaction by transaction basis as far as knowing what house it is. If the house is less than 5 years old, chances are you're not going to have that many things that can go wrong. The roof is still fairly new, and those sorts of things. But there's some due diligence that we could do during the inspection time period, even before the offer time period, so we can be able to let you know, hey, if we know enough advance notice that this is going to be the case, we can make that offer cleaner by just addressing it with inspections. So if you have your offer competing with 5 others, and yours doesn't have anything regarding inspections, not contingent on inspections, that's another big benefit to you versus the other 4 buyers. However, that's a big ask, but it's something for us to consider, and we'll be able to help you with that through the process.
Finally, one of the other bigger items that we come to is financing, the strength of your financing in your offer. And even though we want you to try to use a local lender if possible, because that is going to be a benefit to you in the offer process with having multiple offers, cash is always king. So you may have the sweetest, cleanest, nicest offer, a beautiful offer that you can compare with another, one laying side by side. But if you have financing contingency saying you're putting 20% down, which is a very strong offer, and someone comes over here with cash and has proof of cash in the bank, cash typically always trumps someone that has a financing contingency. And it kind of plays a part too, if it's, depending on if it's FHA, if it's USDA, if it's VA, the more money down, the more skin in the game. The seller is going to see that as a stronger, more positive financial situation. And they're probably going to use that in their analysis when they do their spreadsheet of kind of sizing up the offers and seeing which one is actually the better offer for them.
So kind of do a little recap here. If we're making an offer, traditionally the offer is written to be able to protect the buyer always. So you have 3 ways to be able to get out of the contract as a buyer. First way is to be able to do inspections, because that's what comes up first. So anything comes along with those inspections, you have the right to get out of the contract and get your earnest money back. Second way is to be able to have the appraisal done. If the appraisal comes back and you're not able to come together with terms on the seller, you're able to get out of the contract if the seller won't reduce the price to that appraisal amount. And the third way is the financing, which Bev just mentioned. If there's something that comes up with your financing, let's indicate that, circumstances change with medical or, just life changes for you and you're not able to proceed with getting the loan, or something happens with your job, or, something happens with COVID and you're not able to move forward because you aren't, getting the hours that you need to or what have you, then that financing contingency helps you in that case. But one of the things to think about, even if you don't have cash, that financing contingency is just another red flag for the seller. And so if you make your offer not contingent upon financing, you can get financing, you can get a loan, you're just not making your offer contingent upon the ability of you being able to get that loan, that you're gonna take the risk, and what you're risking is your earnest money and, that process. So if you're not able to proceed and be able to do it, there's buyer default and seller default in the contract. And so that's kind of one of the things to consider. So we'll walk you through that, but not everybody has cash, not everybody has 20% down, and it's okay as long as we have that approval letter and you're comfortable and your lender's comfortable that you're gonna get the loan. That's really all that matters, is about that financing time period.
Well, and quite frankly, with interest rates being so low, even if a person has a larger down payment or has cash in the bank, it may not be financially prudent to actually pay for a house outright. You may be better off to leave that money invested, that it's making a better return for you, and actually finance the home. So that's where you need to talk to your accountant, your financial planner, and see what's going to be in your best interest on that. So we hope that you found this information to be very valuable, because this truly is the market that we are in. And so if you need guidance as far as a multiple offer situation, or need a buyer's agent to assist you in the process, certainly reach out to our Bev & Co team, and we can be here to assist you with your needs. Next week, we're going to dive in kind of on part 2 with this negotiation of multiple offers from the seller's viewpoint. And I think that's going to be a very interesting one to see too, because this is the buyer's side of it. Now we're going to go to the seller's side, which looks a little bit different from their perception of what your offer is. And so we'll kind of break that down next week.
A lot of things happening between this week and next week, though, Bev.
What's that, Kenny? What's happening?
It's Valentine's week. I want to make sure that we get that announcement out there about Valentine's.
Don't forget to give Robin her little gift, and
I know, but
make sure you love on her.
Here's the big thing. I want to be able to make sure, a big shout out, happy birthday to Robin, because on the 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, is Robin's birthday. So whenever Valentine's Day comes up, it's always a big reminder to Kenny. And now that I've joined Bev & Co, not only is it Robin's birthday, but it's also Bev's birthday, because tomorrow, the 11th of February, is Bev's birthday. So, happy birthday to you. And I don't want to send anybody, but I do consider, sincerely, happy birthday. And
thank you. Well, see, Ellen's got a big reminder, like Kenny's got a big reminder, since mine is on the 11th and Valentine's Day is on the 14th. He only messed that up one time, and he's never messed it up again, so it's all good.
Till next week, guys. Thank you. Happy birthday, Bev.
Thank you.